Hey FROMily, it's Julie B. Deep Dives, and today I'm diving into the next installment of my FROMily Town Meeting series to address the most important takeaways and theories for Episode 7, These Fragile Lives. We had another encounter between Elgin and Kimono Lady, plus an ominous secret room and a mysterious dead body, Tabitha and Jade joining Jim at the site of her recurring nightmares, and of course some mind-blowing developments with Fatima's phantom pregnancy culminating in a shocking new death. As usual, our characters are failing to effectively work together to communicate as a group, so let's come together as the FROMily and dive into some theories, questions, and predictions. Let's start with Victor and his creepy little friend Jasper. He's interrogating Jasper here, saying, "I'm not scared of you, I know you can talk." But Jasper just sits there smirking at him in this distinctive yellow chair. Once again, the color yellow, particularly this mustard yellow, is featured heavily on the show, which I think represents hope. In Western cultures, yellow typically does represent hope, and it can't be a good sign that this evil-looking thing is sitting in the middle of it. Henry here comes in, and we find out from him that Victor spent a whole night and morning yelling at this dummy to tell him what it knows about the 1978 massacre. Henry tries to get him to calm down and just let it go, but Victor just takes off with Jasper. One of the biggest issues in this episode and the show overall is the recurring theme of disbelief between the characters, questioning each other's sanity. In a way, it's understandable because they keep remembering how Abby snapped and massacred a lot of people, believing it would wake them up and get them out of Fromville. And it's also understandable that Henry might struggle to wrap his head around a dummy that could come to life, having just arrived in town, but he literally did just see actual monsters in the cave with Victor, so it's kind of strange that he can't conceive that this could be possible. Interestingly, Victor takes Jasper to Sarah's house and says he needs to go in her basement again, thinking she might be able to help get Jasper to talk. This doesn't feel like the right kind of show for a haunted dummy, just really not the right kind of horror. It's an old horror trope, but it just doesn't seem to fit in with the tenor of this show. But if it does talk, it would be like a parlor trick by the big bad, speaking through it, the way I think it did with the voice on the phone and the voice on the radio. And we have seen that it can physically make things move with invisible force, like the way it collapsed the Matthews house. Meanwhile, Henry is so shaken up by his encounter with Victor that he goes off to the bar to have a drink with Donna, right in the daytime, where he shares that in a moment of weakness, he had wished he never found this place and that he still believed his whole family was deceased. This is understandable, of course. He's only human. But in this place, having that kind of feeling or thought or statement, even just for a moment, could possibly manifest it into reality. Hopefully it doesn't actually manifest Victor's demise. I do predict that once Victor recovers all of his memories and remembers everything, if he ever remembers everything, he will no longer be protected by the big bad and he will ultimately lose his life. But hopefully not this season. Now we have to address the Fatima situation, followed by Elgin's storyline and how it will connect. After Christy tells Fatima that she's not pregnant, having seen nothing on the ultrasound, Fatima flips out and leaves. Once again, we have the recurring theme of disbelief and questioning people's sanity. When Christy is alone with Boyd, she says that either she's got something growing inside of her that we can't see, or this place has finally gotten to her and made her believe she's pregnant. The first part of Christy's statement aligns with our fan theory and my personal theory as well, that Fatima really does have an entity inside of her that just isn't visible on an ultrasound. Donna later says something similar to this too, and so does Ellis. Now Marielle points out to Fatima that it wasn't so long ago that Boyd had worms under his skin that no one else could see. This is also something that I had pointed out as well as other fans. At first, no one could see the worms under Boyd's skin, but eventually they became visible to others. And I think this is exactly what is happening with Fatima. It wouldn't be the first time that an entity was inside someone and no one else could see it. But the bizarre thing is, even though multiple characters discuss that incident with the worms, it seems they've learned very little from that experience, because they were still too reluctant in this episode to believe Fatima, and they all question her sanity. Christy says this shows all the signs of a psychosomatic pregnancy, and Ellis later gets antipsychotic pills to give to Fatima. Marielle later tells Fatima that she can still feel those bugs crawling around inside of her sometimes, but she just reminds herself that it isn't real, that it's just fear, and fear can only break her if she lets it. I'll come back to Marielle in a bit, but I don't believe that what is happening to Fatima and what happened to the Cicada 3, as we call them, isn't real. The Cicada 3 were all trapped in a dream state, and while no one could see the cicadas but them, what happened to them was very real and could have been fatal. The same goes for Fatima. This is all too real, and it could very well be fatal as well. In a place where monsters come out at night, trees teleport you to other places, and invisible cicadas attack people, why are so many people still so incredulous about the validity of new bizarre events? It's actually an interesting psychological phenomenon that we're seeing. For years, the monsters and this road in town that loops in a circle were the only supernatural things that the townspeople were all aware of as a whole, and it became their new normal. This is reality to them, and anything outside of that norm is suspect. Anytime some new, seemingly impossible thing comes up now, they find it hard to believe and question their own sanity or others' sanity. They think it's just a hallucination or their mind is breaking. This is a huge obstacle to them coming together, helping each other through these experiences, and ultimately defeating the big bad. And I think it's really by design. Individuals in this place have been targeted with a variety of unique phenomena that only they can see, and it isolates and disorients them, making them less likely to feel comfortable confiding in others, and when they do, people doubt them or fling accusations. This discourages open communication even more. And this, my friends, is why we don't have productive town meetings here. When Boyd came back from the woods in season 2 after this encounter with Martin and getting the worms, he tried to tell Ellis that some of his story about going through a tree, and Ellis didn't believe him. This made Boyd even less likely to share the rest of his story about Martin in the dungeon. Then Christy and Kenny didn't believe him about the worms. After that experience, and after this season, how everyone found out that Tabitha went through a tree and wound up back in the real world, you would think they'd be more likely to believe Fatima now. But still their incredulity continues, and it slows down their ability to deal with problems together until they just completely explode, as Fatima's problem does by the end of this episode. By the way, the theme of broken glass appears yet again in the Fatima clinic scene. Ellis hands her a glass of water and she smashes it. The big bad is actively trying to break everyone here, especially Boyd. After smashing the music box in season 2, Boyd yelled, "You don't break me." And the big bad took that as a challenge, staging the ambush in season 3 with the livestock and throwing his words back in his face through the cowboy monster. Boyd also made a speech this season saying, "This place will not break us." It's not just him. Everyone is a target. He's just targeted the most because everyone relies on him the most. And if you slowly break him, you slowly break the entire town by extension and drag out their suffering and pain, which this place feeds on. The broken glass is a perfect metaphor for all of this. Tian Shen once broke a glass and cut herself. Tabitha did the same this season, here, with Henry bandaging her up. She also went crashing through the lighthouse window, breaking the glass. And in season 2, Jade broke many bottles to create a giant symbol on the floor of the bar. The first episode of season 3 is called Shatter. I could go on here, but most fittingly, in season 1, Sarah told a story about a girl trying to put the pieces of broken glass back together, but could never do it. This season, she was trying to put back together the pieces of this ornament that Kenny smashed last season that meant so much to her. She said, "I may never be able to put it back together, but I like to try." This is a perfect, elegant metaphor for herself, a broken person who will never be able to put herself back together. Eventually, I'm sure this place will claim her life because, as Kenny said in season 1, broken people don't survive here. Thus, this theme of brokenness pervades the entire series. Now back at Colony House, Fatima tells Marielle, "I'm not eating garbage because I'm afraid or broken. It's happening because it's making me." So she clearly feels that there is something inside of her that is making her eat rotten vegetables and made her drink blood. It's not something that she can control. Just like Christy, Marielle, and the others, Ellis clearly doubts her sanity. She becomes more panicked and says, "Why isn't anyone listening to me? It's happening inside of me." And here's the theme of brokenness coming up again. He says, "Ever since that night at the sheriff's station, you broke down in my arms. You said you couldn't take it anymore." She tells him she's been measuring herself every day and her stomach has been getting bigger, but he's still incredulous. She goes on to say, "Whatever is inside of me, it's getting stronger, the cravings. I'm angry all the time. If there's nothing there, if the baby isn't real, then that means it's me." But I don't think it's just her. I've been convinced all along that there's an entity using her as a vessel, and it's changed her whole demeanor and compelled her to do things against her will as the cravings get stronger. Even after seeing that ultrasound with nothing on it, I was still convinced. I don't think that she's turning into a nightmare creature. We've never seen any evidence that they do anything like drink blood or eat people or anything like that, even though the organs disappear from their victims. We've never actually seen them eat them. And Fatima actually drank blood. I think this is something altogether different growing inside of her. Now, all along, Tilly has been acting strangely interested in Fatima's pregnancy and inserting herself in the middle of her personal business regarding it. She knew Fatima was pregnant in season 2, saying she can sense this because she has 4 kids and 7 grandkids. But is this actually normal? Now, in real life, sometimes women can say they sense these things. But in this place, it's suspect to me, because this is clearly not a normal pregnancy, and the ultrasound showed nothing, nor was there any sign of a miscarriage. Tilly also kept following Fatima around ever since that time. Ever since season 2, she's been fixated on her and worried about her. She has continually told Fatima and Ellis that everything is okay and normal, when clearly it's not, giving them a false sense of security. Keep in mind, it seems like FROMville thrives on giving people false hope, just to take it away and milk their suffering more. Yeah, maybe Tilly means well. Maybe she is just trying to be comforting, reassuring, but I don't know. I just have a weird feeling about all of it. After seeing Fatima eat rotten vegetables, Tilly went to see her, and Fatima didn't want to talk to her, but Tilly was really pushy until Fatima let her in her room. Only then did Fatima break down and tell her how terrified she was about the baby. In episode 7, Tilly reassured Ellis once again and told him that even though she has cancer, she's not afraid of dying anymore. She says that this life is just the beginning of some grand adventure, or maybe it's the middle, but I don't think it's the end. This foreshadows her own impending demise. It's as if she senses what's coming at the end of the episode. And maybe in a sense she's not completely gone. Who knows, maybe she somehow is part of the evil entity in a way, or connected to it. Laying in bed, Fatima experiences a bizarre and disturbing event. Her stomach seemingly caves in against her ribcage, making her look hollow inside as if there are no organs there, as she screams in pain. I think that this is the entity inside her tormenting her and possibly feeding on her insides. When Alice comes in, it's back to normal, and he still doesn't believe this is real. And once again, Tilly was right in the doorway looking on. Ellis later goes to the clinic and grabs some powerful antipsychotic medication, which Christy and Boyd insist that he give back, as Christy says it could make things much worse. Ellis breaks down with Boyd and references Boyd's worms and what happened to his mother when she lost her mind, the 2 options that Christy and Donna also allude to in this episode. Either there's an entity inside her or her mind is broken. Once again, there's a reference to nightmares in the dialogue, which comes up constantly in this show. Ellis says, "Which nightmare am I supposed to be afraid of?" As I've said in other videos, I don't believe the nightmare references mean that they're all in a shared dream state or someone is literally dreaming all of this. It's just that this place induces all kinds of dream states and visions to manipulate, torment, and communicate with the residents here in what is basically a nightmare realm. in a pocket dimension, in my opinion. And by the way, Ellis says in this scene, "Please don't let this happen, Dad," which is yet another example of the way everyone here expects Boyd to work miracles and fix everything. In this episode's bombshell ending, Fatima goes to the greenhouse and looks at all the rotten vegetables but pushes them away. They don't seem to be enough to satisfy her cravings anymore, and she probably craves more blood or even human flesh. She starts screaming in pain again, and Tilly once again pops up as if she's been following her. Fatima keeps yelling at her to get away, but Tilly refuses to back off, saying, "You're not alone anymore. I'm going to help you. Everything's going to be okay." Once again, reassuring Fatima that this is normal when it's clearly not, and everything is not going to be okay. How exactly was Tilly going to help her? I think once again, she was giving Fatima false hope, just so it can be snatched away. Evil entities like some of the voices in Sarah's head, and in my opinion, the kimono lady, also promise that they can help. Now look, I'm not saying that Tilly was evil. I don't think that Tilly was a literal mole reporting to the big bad. The big bad is omniscient, as we've seen that it can see and hear them wherever they are, and the monsters know all about them. It knew Tabitha was digging in the basement. It heard Boyd yelling, "You don't break me," out in the middle of the woods in the daytime. So it doesn't need a mole. And honestly, I think that Tilly thought that she was doing a good thing. I don't think that Tilly was consciously a villain or in any way conscious of what she was doing. But I do think that certain residents could be connected to the big bad and used as a tool to manipulate people, probably on an unconscious level, like a kind of mind control. It compels them to say and do certain things, like when Tilly brought her morphine to the clinic, just as Marielle, an addict, was moving in. I don't think she deliberately did that to make her relapse, but the big bad orchestrated it and somehow compelled her to do it or put that idea in her mind. Similarly, I think that Tilly was driven to obsess over Fatima's pregnancy and continually give her and Ellis false hope. She really didn't know what she was doing. So I'm not saying that Tilly was a villain. I'm really not. But in this way, Tilly was sus, even given what happened to her in this final scene. Fatima suddenly grabs a garden tool and stabs Tilly directly in the heart. This isn't an accidental incident, like when Dale turned on with a knife in his hand and it stabbed Ellis in season 2, which was just an accident. But in this scene, Fatima clearly grabs that gardening tool and plunges it into Tilly's heart. And I believe this is the entity inside her making her do it. Just like she said, it makes her eat rotten food. She immediately looks shocked and horrified, clearly having been compelled to do this against her will. As Tilly dies, she's still giving Fatima advice, saying, "You need to run." I don't think this just means she should run away from the scene of this accidental murder, but to run from the rest of the townspeople, too, because she'll get in serious trouble if they find out what she did. She's going to need to run in the near future, not just from this momentary issue where she's going to be caught with Tilly's body. Ellis comes in and finds her here as she's yelling for help. So what happens now? The way I see it, Fatima and Ellis will try to cover up what she did, as Ellis is unconditionally loyal to her. I predict that they'll tell Boyd about it, though, and he'll keep quiet and cover it up. In the trailer for episode 8, a red shirt yells for help after finding Tilly's body, and Boyd and Acosta are investigating the scene of the murder. Acosta will likely be a problem here. As a cop, she'll want to take control and conduct an investigation by the book, while Boyd does things differently, and as a self-appointed sheriff, if Fatima and Ellis confide the truth in him, he'll definitely want to protect her as an extension of his family. Now, another key storyline we need to discuss is Elgin. He makes a creepy mobile for Fatima to cheer her up, he says, and he shows it to Tilly, of course, before her demise. And we know Tilly had her nose in Fatima's pregnancy business from the start. Elgin has also been connected to her pregnancy storyline from the start in more ways than one. In season 2, when he found out Fatima was pregnant, it triggered his memory, and he recalled the boy in white reciting the cicada nursery rhyme in his dream that he had on the bus coming into town, the premonition dream that terrified him so much that he panicked when he woke up and saw this place, as if he recognized it. I've always believed that there must be more to the dream that he hasn't remembered, because that shouldn't have been scary enough to make him panic. I think the rest of the dream might have to do with the new threat that will be unleashed by Fatima's so-called pregnancy. The kimono lady seems to be tied to Fatima's situation too. Recall that she magically appeared in the Polaroid that Elgin took of Fatima in episode 6, and I believe this is a clue that she is a direct threat to her. In a creepy moment in episode 7, a picture of the root cellar doors magically pops out of the Polaroid camera by itself when Elgin is still at Colony House. So now we have a haunted jukebox, a haunted phone, a haunted police radio, and a haunted camera. Instead of telling someone and getting backup to come with him, which would have been logical, Elgin goes to the root cellar alone. He's got a yellow backpack on, a color that is constantly featured in the show once again, which again I think represents hope. He enters the root cellar, opens a door, and then opens a wardrobe just to find it empty. And as he goes to leave, there are 3 creepy knocks behind him, followed by 2 more as he turns around. He moves the wardrobe and finds a red door, a color that seems to represent evil and danger. So the yellow backpack and the red door seem to represent hope being endangered in this storyline. Now, Elgin also has these 2 colors on his shirt that he's worn. He's literally worn since day 1 and nothing else. He's never changed his clothes. And it has a crow on it, the infamous bird that swarms the sky when people reach the fallen tree and are about to enter FROMville. I think that the crows represent the evil entity that's watching everyone. So the crow on Elgin's shirt has foreshadowed that he will do the evil entity's bidding. And I believe that's what's happening now. It's been right in our face all along. They really want us to notice that shirt, since he's literally never worn anything else. I can't think of any other character that's never changed their clothes at all. Behind that ominous red door is a secret room that looks very old like the rest of the root cellar. It has a bed and tables with candles on them. Then on the floor, Elgin finds a dead body covered in a cloth. It's unclear and a mystery who this could be. His outfit looks similar at first glance to Jade's outfit in season 1, but on closer inspection, the shirt is definitely not the same. The kimono lady shows up behind Elgin and he says, "Is this where it happens?" Now, what does this mean? I think the "it" referenced here means the birthing of an evil entity via Fatima. It can't be a coincidence that Elgin has been led here to this secret room just as Fatima has murdered Tilly and is a serious danger to others, since she seemingly loses control of her own actions. So Fatima will need a place to hide out and be locked up, so she's not a danger to others. In the trailer for episode 8, Elgin is shown dragging Fatima down the root cellar stairs as she struggles. A shocking turn of events for such a nice and gentle character as Elgin. It's possible that he's not in control of his own actions in doing this, or the kimono lady has convinced him off camera that this is the only way to save everyone. She had promised to do that in episode 6 at Colony House, but I believe this is a manipulation tactic, which will dupe him into doing something that actually causes great harm. Even before episode 6, I theorized that this would happen, because Victor said, just after meeting Elgin, that he doesn't trust him. I discussed this in my episode 5 breakdown. I think that even though Elgin seems to be a nice character, he definitely is going to unintentionally cause harm, and Victor could sense this. I believe Elgin was reincarnated from someone in the previous cycle, and it's possible that his dream on the bus wasn't even a premonition, but a memory of a past life. The person who filled Elgin's role probably did the same thing that Elgin is doing now, and Victor just can't remember it, but he instinctively doesn't trust Elgin, like I said in my episode 5 video. So it's not looking good for Fatima to survive this ordeal, and she'll probably be one of the beloved characters who won't make it this season. Remember, the showrunners said that there would be a few beloved character deaths. By my count, we've only had one, Tian Chen. As much as Tilly might have been loved by some people, I don't think it counts as one of the most beloved characters. But back to the body in the cellar. Who could this person be? I think it could have been the partner of a woman who experienced the same phenomenon in the past cycle. Perhaps she was locked in there. He couldn't resist going to see her, and maybe she pushed him inside and escaped. Maybe the same thing will happen to Ellis. He'll go visit Fatima there, and she'll push him inside and escape, and everyone will be searching for him. It's possible he might not make it out of this season alive. Since the main goal of the big bad is to break Boyd more than ever this season, what better way than to target Fatima and ultimately cause Ellis's demise? Or perhaps the body belongs to the person who filled Elgin's role in the previous cycle, possibly in a past life, as I think. Somehow the victim inside here maybe turned the tables on him when he went in to see her. Now moving on, in other news, Tabitha and Jade showed Jim and Ethan the area near the cabins with the 3 red painted boulders from Tabitha's recurring nightmare as a child. And once again, we have another character who's incredulous and questioning Tabitha's story about her recurring nightmares as a child about this place. She says that something scared her in that nightmare, but she always woke up before she could see what it was. It looks like we may be getting a new kind of entity out here, a more serious threat because it can attack in the daytime, as something seemed to be about to attack young Tabitha in her dreams that took place here. Jade has some significant dialogue here relating to free will versus determinism. He says that maybe Aristotle was wrong about free will, and maybe Tabitha was always meant to come here, based on her nightmares, and there's nothing that she could have done to avoid it. I believe this is actually the case. This concept fits in perfectly with the reincarnation theory that I discussed in my previous video after episode 6. I also brought up this reincarnation theory after episode 3 in my video Tabitha and the Mirror World, because I do believe that Tabitha was reincarnated. She was always fated to come here because she was reincarnated from Miranda, and there's nothing she could have done to avoid it. That's why when she was pushed out of the lighthouse, she was pulled right back in without even needing to try. And what Jay doesn't realize now is the same is true for him and probably many other characters, in my opinion. Elsewhere, Boyd updates Donna about Fatima because they had promised not to keep secrets from each other anymore, and they discuss the 2 possibilities that Christy and Ellis also mention in this episode, that there's an entity inside her like the worms, or that she's lost her mind. Donna says she doesn't think it would be wise for Fatima to stay at Colony House either way, due to the threat to the rest of her people. She's lost too many of them already, so it's understandable and it's logical. She turns out to have made the right call since Fatima actually takes out one of her own people, Tilly, by the end of this very episode. But I was just surprised by the cold tone that Donna used. Fatima has been like a daughter to her. She's had very touching emotional scenes in which she showed how much she loved Fatima in seasons 1 and 2. But I think this place has really broken her down and made her more insensitive. The next topic that needs to be addressed here is definitely one that should be shared between a larger group of characters so they could actually try to figure out what's going on. But once again, there were silos of information here. The 3 people who were in the cicada coma in season 2 are keeping their mouths shut and only discussing it with each other and occasionally maybe another person like Julie and Ethan. It's really something that Boyd, Jade, and Julie's parents should all know about. Now, interestingly, as I said before, Marielle stated in this episode that it isn't real, that it's just fear, and fear can only break me if I let it, when she feels these cicadas still under her skin. Now, is this true in FROMville, though? Can fear only break you if you let it? She does seem to be doing surprisingly well in the aftermath of the cicada coma, unlike Randall and Julie, who were also in the same situation. She could be secretly taking drugs again from the new supply in the ambulance, though, which could also mitigate the after effects, like the way Julie is helping those after effects with marijuana. But is it possible that you can really beat FROMville entities with mind over matter mentality, rejecting fear? It's possible. Back in season 2, Randall was fearless and confronted the monsters from inside the bus, telling them he wasn't afraid, and they all turned and walked away in tandem. Now, it seems that he's very much afraid, although he hides it well from others. He's doing the worst out of the 3 from the cicada coma, still feeling the cicadas attacking him on a regular basis, and only he can see them. In this episode, he had another attack while driving around with Julie, and had to pull over, jumping out of the car and writhing on the ground again. Julie couldn't see the cicadas, but the effect clearly felt real to him. It's not just in his head, he definitely feels this. Julie has said that it feels like this place has gotten into her head and she's scared of what that might mean, that she could hurt people like Sarah did. So she's admitted to being terrified to Ethan and Elgin and others, and that could be why she's still suffering from after effects from the cicada coma. Maybe it does have to do with the level of fear that you're experiencing. She doesn't get the cicada attacks, but she hears screaming in her head. The only thing that makes it quiet is marijuana. This can be a calming substance, so if calming fear can quell the effects of FROMily entities, then it makes sense that it helps her. This place seems to feed on people's fear, pain, and suffering, trying to break them mentally and emotionally. So it's possible that a lack of fear would actually work against the evil entities. Julie and Randall go toward the ruins of the dungeon where their spirits had been chained up, but they don't know that this was the area because they never actually physically went there. Only their spirits were here. Julie just feels inexplicably drawn to it, though, wanting to go closer. It's as if this place is still trying to pull them in. It's still connected to them, even though Boyd smashed the music box. They're not free of it. They're tied to it somehow. Their spirits are. Randall looks so afraid that he even says please when he asks Julie to leave that area with him. I've never heard him be that polite to anyone or say the word please. So you know something scary is going on here. And the episode 8 trailer shows Julie and Ethan walking toward the same area. Once again, a Matthews family member leading Ethan into a dangerous spot. I think Julie can re-enter the dungeon dream state without a torch because, Boyd needed to do this with a torch because he was not part of the Cicada 3. But I think that Julie, Randall, and Marielle would have the ability to re-enter without a torch. Now, moving on, there's this scene between Acosta and Kenny in the diner. She's giving off the same energy as Jade when he first arrived and went into the bar, wondering how they can just sit around and not ask more questions or try to find a way out. Kenny told Jade back then that everyone has asked these questions at some point, but if he doesn't learn to adapt, he'll lose his mind, and broken people don't survive here. He basically gives the same kind of speech to Acosta, who just responds with unnecessary rudeness. When next we see her, Acosta has barged into the sheriff's station and started rifling through Boyd's stuff, looking for her gun. Boyd is irate about her invading his space, and she actually gets in his face, demanding he give back her gun. He reminds her that she just killed someone, but eventually gives her the gun, just no bullets. She clearly shouldn't have access to a gun after just accidentally killing someone, and she's still adjusting to this place and dealing with it. She's way too jittery to be anywhere near a loaded weapon. Once again, the word nightmare is in the script, with Acosta saying that she killed someone because she panicked after seeing things that should only exist in a nightmare. Now again, I don't think this is all a shared dream state or someone's literal nightmare, but nightmares and dream states are central to the way this realm functions. Now, why is Acosta so intent on getting her gun back when she knows firsthand that it doesn't work on the monsters? She's also still wearing her cop uniform and turned down an offer of a change of clothes, so it seems like she's going to cling to her police role and try to attain a position of authority here, likely because she's scared. And again, her attitude will pose a problem for all of them, I think, and she'll probably continue to butt heads with Boyd. In interviews, the actress who plays Acosta won't give out her character's first name, so that has gotten the fandom wondering if it's significant in some way. She flashes her badge at Boyd in the scene, but it's too blurry to show anything. I think that she still thinks that it actually gives her authority when clearly she has no jurisdiction in FROMville. So there you have it. Episode 7 set up multiple intriguing storylines that are really about to explode in the final 3 episodes. It looks like the entity inside Fatima is rapidly getting stronger and is about to be unleashed. Elgin and the kimono lady are going to play a key role in getting Fatima locked up in the secret root cellar room. Victor is going to try to dredge up more memories. Some unknown threat is lurking by the cabins in the woods and should finally be revealed soon. And Julie will continue to be drawn to the site of her cicada coma dream state. Now, I want to know what you guys think. What do you think is happening to Fatima and why? What do you think about the secret room in the root cellar and the identity of the body in there? Who could that have been? How is the kimono lady connected to this room and to Fatima? Is Jade correct that it was Tabitha's predestined fate to end up here, and why? Who or what could be lurking out at the cabins? And when are we finally going to get that reveal? I'd love to hear your thoughts on these topics and any other ideas you may have. Just please don't make any references to spoilers or leaks. I will have to remove those if so. And until next time, keep on deep diving and let's see what we can uncover together.